Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us here on CBS News 24/7. I'm Lindsay Reiser. Vice President Kamala Harris has picked Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her running mate. The 60-year-old military veteran and former public school teacher has a history of appealing to rural, moderate voters. He took the governor's office in 2019, and he's currently serving his second term. Walz also served 12 years in the United States House of Representatives. During his time in Washington, he was the ranking member of the Veterans Affairs Committee. It's a cause close to his heart as a veteran of the Army National Guard. Vice President Harris solidified her place as the Democratic nominee last night. She announced Walz as her running mate with less than 2 weeks to go until the Democratic National Convention and one day before she had to announce her pick to satisfy Ohio's current ballot deadline. Harris and Walz will campaign together for the first time as a ticket in Philadelphia later today to kick off a multi-day battleground state tour this week. Let's bring in CBS News Chief White House correspondent Nancy Cordes. She's in Philadelphia, where Walz will make his debut as running mate. So, Nancy, what does your latest reporting tell you about why Harris chose Walz?
Well, what I've learned from speaking to individuals close to the selection process, Lindsay, is that there were a few different factors that really led to him ending up at the top of the heap. First and foremost, executive experience. He has served as governor of Minnesota for 6 years. He has had a Democratic state legislature, so he's been able to get a lot done, particularly when it comes to major national Democratic priorities. His legislature codified Roe v. Wade, and he signed it into law in that state, protecting access to abortion. He signed a law providing free school lunches to low-income students in the state. He signed a law having to do with paid family leave. So when it comes to the big issues that are animating for Democrats, he was right there with Vice President Harris. But then beyond that, really his bio and his ability to communicate stood out. As you mentioned, a veteran, a former teacher, a hunter, a gun owner, and someone who has been able to sort of talk in that folksy Midwestern way about the Democrats' opponents without coming across as overly angry or too pointed. And so for Harris, he really had that mix of executive experience, legislative experience, 12 years in the U.S. House, plus a background as someone who is Minnesota nice, as you will. There's a reason that term exists. Someone who she thought that she could work well with. I'm told they had a great rapport right from the start.
So given his expansion of free lunch, some progressive policies like paid family leave, early support of LGBTQ+ rights, signing a law codifying access to abortion in the state in 2023, you mentioned he is a gun owner. Do you think that some of the, they're the most extreme left ticket we've ever seen, attacks from the Republican Party will stick?
I'm sure that that's the case that they're going to make. In fact, already in the press releases that we've been seeing from the Republican ticket, they're arguing, oh, he's just another Kamala Harris. She's a San Francisco liberal. And that's the argument that they are going to try to make. Waltz has proven to be pretty deft in rebutting arguments like that and attacks on Harris that have that kind of flavor. And he also has argued, you know, who's opposed to school lunches for kids so that they can learn. He has been able to put in very simple terms why some of these policies are very popular, not just with the left, but with moderates. In a way, the Harris campaign believes that will appeal to Midwestern voters in particular in a pair of very important battleground states, Wisconsin and Michigan.
Let's talk about demographics also, because as part of choosing a running mate, yes, you have been reporting that Harris wants somebody that she gels with and somebody who can do the job if need be from day one. But also, of course, it's strategy and it's who you can bring into the party who you don't already have. Specifically, young voters. It appears, at least on social media, that he's gained some traction in recent weeks.
Mm-hmm. Right. And, you know, he's not the youngest potential choice for a running mate. He is 60 years old. He's about 6 months older than Harris herself. Certainly someone like Josh Shapiro was about a decade younger. And yet Walz is one of the individuals, I'd say with Pete Buttigieg, who really animated young voters and base voters who they really took a liking to and made it clear on social media that they were leaning towards. And it isn't just young voters. You also had congressional leaders like Nancy Pelosi signaling that he was one of her top choices, union leaders saying they'd be very happy with that pick. And in fact, just today, since we've learned of the choice, Lindsay, we've seen glowing statements from liberals like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and moderates like Joe Manchin of West Virginia, both hailing this choice. If you can get both wings of the party like that to agree, then it's a pretty good day.
Nancy Cordes, thank you. Earlier today, I spoke with Senator Amy Klobuchar, a Democrat from Minnesota, about Harris picking Walz as her running mate, who she describes as a close friend. Take a listen. Senator, thank you so much for your time. And we know that you know Governor Waltz well. You were with him last night at a Harris fundraiser. We understand she made her decision down to the wire this morning, but did you discuss Veep stakes with him last night?
No, we were just there doing the job, and that kind of defines Tim Walz to me. He is someone that has always believed in putting his country first, and that's meant signing up for the National Guard at age 17 out of Nebraska, growing up at a farm, deciding to be a high school teacher and a football coach, serving in the National Guard, and then back in 2006 deciding, I don't like the way this government's going, and I'm going to run for Congress. He held a seat that only 2 Democrats held in 100 years in this very rural district, and did it well, bringing in Democrats, Republicans, independents, and then was our great governor. Really, I always think of him in a plaid shirt, being so optimistic all the time, and being able to work with workers and businesses. It's really defined him in a way, joy and positivity, and I really thank the Vice President Kamala Harris, for making such a choice of someone she can trust. I'm his friend. I know you can trust him. Someone that our country can trust as a leader, and then someone who also is going to bring a different part of the country and the world to this ticket. He gets the Midwest. He gets rural.
Senator, many Americans are going to be introduced to Walz for the first time today when he makes an appearance with Harris in Pennsylvania. Do you have any personal stories that sort of to you define his character?
Yeah, and that is that he and Gwen, his wife, have stood with me. You know, when I found out that I had breast cancer, I'm fine now, you know, he was one of the first calls to me. He has stood with our state through thick and thin. And someone that I think people now realize, if they've seen him on TV in the last few weeks, he's blunt, but he does it with a smile. And we go so far back that the town where he taught high school is a town my husband grew up in. And my mother-in-law actually brought Tim and Gwen a chicken parmesan dinner when their baby Gus was born, because that's what my mother-in-law does. When there's any new kids in the town, she shows up with a casserole. And I just think that story, and Tim Walz, they sent him a nice note afterwards with drawings from their daughter, Hope. I mean, he is someone who grew up with nothing and is a normal guy who made it on his own patriotism and his own ability to lead troops, to lead students, and then to lead in Congress, and then to lead our state. I think that's what we call a real leader, and that is what you're going to see in Tim Walz.
Senator, I have less than a minute with you, but what is your counter to some of the arguments we are already hearing from Republicans, and that he and Harris are an extremely progressive far-left ticket? We're also hearing criticism of Waltz in terms of increasing the state budget there in Minnesota, and in a delay of mobilizing the National Guard amid protests.
Okay, that's a lot in 1 minute, but let me just say that, first of all, as I said, Tim Walz represented a rural district and has been known as someone who brings people together, not cuts them down like Donald Trump. He is someone who strongly opposed the defund the police measure, as did I, when it was on the ballot in the city of Minneapolis, and he actually increased funding for police. He's someone that did call in the National Guard, and he got some grief for
So
that.
he only
But he did the right thing when violent riots broke out. There were a bunch of peaceful protests, but when it turned to violence, Tim Walz did call in the National Guard. So I'm surprised they're not just welcoming him to the national ticket. That's what we used to do in our politics, but that's not the Donald Trump we know. So I just hope that America sees today, when he sees Tim and Vice President Harris on that stage, they're going to see strength and they're going to see optimism and joy. Yes, joy. That's what we need right now on the national stage. Getting stuff done.
Well, if anyone knows the rigors of running for the highest office, it's you, Senator, so I'm sure you know what is up for your friend, Tim Walz.
I know. I've already warned him of all this. Yes, I know.
Senator Klobuchar, thank you.